Have you ever considered a question, how many weapons are there in humans' history? An Aztec warrior swings a wooden club edged with black glass, and a Spanish warhorse loses its head in a single blow. A Spanish chronicler named Bernal Diaz del Castillo actually wrote that down. He watched it happen. A club made of wood, beheading a horse. And that club, it didn't even have a piece of metal on it. So let me ask you something that sounds simple, but absolutely is not. How many weapons has the human race ever built? Not guns, not bombs. I mean the real old stuff. Blades, clubs, spikes, claws. How many are there? Take a guess. Then hold on to it, because the real answer is going to unravel everything you think you know about how clever our ancestors actually were. First, let's agree on what we're even counting. Strip away anything that uses fire, gunpowder, or explosives. What's left is what people call cold weapons. And here's the beautiful part. Underneath the endless variety, there are really only 5 ideas. Just 5. Blunt force for crushing, edged blades for slicing, pole arms for reach and leverage, flexible weapons that build up momentum, and muscle-powered ranged weapons that store up tension and let it fly. That's it. Every sword, every mace, every spear you've ever seen is a remix of those 5 concepts. So you'd think we could just list them out, right? China even tried. They have a famous system called the 18 Arms of Wushu. Sounds neat and tidy. 18. Done. Except it's a lie. A comforting lie. Because the truth is a chaotic sprawl. Think of it like Darwin's finches. On the Galapagos Islands, one species of bird split into dozens, each one growing a slightly different beak to crack a different seed. Weapons did the exact same thing. Every battlefield, every climate, every culture grew its own strange beak to crack open a different kind of enemy. Multiply 5 basic ideas by 5,000 years of human paranoia and metalworking, and the number doesn't just grow, it explodes into the tens of thousands. But why? Why so many? Here's the engine driving all of it. Weapons never evolved on their own. They evolved in a deadly race against armor. Every time defense got tougher, offense had to get nastier. And by the 1400s, defense got terrifyingly good. Picture a knight in full Milanese plate armor. We imagine those guys as clunky tin men who fell over and couldn't get up. Wrong. He was the medieval Iron Man suit. Smooth, angled, articulated steel. Hitting him with a normal broadsword was like swinging a baseball bat at a tank. The blade just skidded off. So what do? You get creative, and you get brutal. Enter the Estoc, also called the tuck. This thing barely looked like a sword at all. It looked like a giant steel needle. 4 feet of rigid spike with no cutting edge whatsoever. None. Because it wasn't for cutting. It was a human-powered, armor-piercing round. You'd grip it and drive that point straight into the little gaps, the armpit, the visor slit, the joint behind the knee. All the places even Iron Man can't seal completely. A cutting sword was useless. A spike was a key. And on the total opposite end, the Zweihänder, a monster. 7 feet long, 6 pounds of steel, swung by German mercenaries. They didn't duel with this thing. That's not what it was for. When the enemy formed a wall of long pikes, bristling like a porcupine, someone had to break it. So these men waded in and used the Zweihänder like a massive crowbar, literally batting entire pikes aside to open a hole. The men who did it were called Doppelsöldner, double pay men, because they got paid twice as much for a job that killed most of them. That's the arms race. Armor gets harder, and suddenly you've got needles and crowbars on the same battlefield. Now, once the basics were solved, human ingenuity did something wonderful. It got weird. Really, really weird. Let me introduce you to the strangest things people ever forged. Start with the Indian Urumi, born from a martial art called Kalaripayattu in Kerala. Imagine a bundle of steel measuring tapes. Now, imagine every one of them is razor sharp. When it's resting, the Urumi wraps around the warrior's waist like a belt. It looks like jewelry, but in combat, the wielder starts spinning, and centrifugal force makes those limp blades snap straight out, whipping in every direction. It's like trying to tame a metallic tornado. You can't block it. There's nothing solid to hit. It creates a spinning bubble of death that holds off a whole crowd of attackers at once. But here's the catch that gives me chills. The most dangerous thing to an Urumi wielder isn't the enemy, it's themselves. One tiny miscalculation, one wobble in the rhythm, and you don't hit the other guy, you take off your own arm. This is a weapon you must master, or die trying. And now, back to that horse, the Mesoamerican Macuahuitl. Remember, the Aztecs had no iron, no steel. So they took a flat wooden paddle and lined its edges with jagged shards of obsidian, volcanic glass. And here's where it gets almost unbelievable. When obsidian fractures, its edge breaks down to nearly a single atom. That makes it hundreds of times sharper than a modern surgeon's steel scalpel. Hundreds. So when a warrior slashed with one, it didn't bruise or dent, it carved. That's how a wooden club took a horse's head clean off. But this was the ultimate glass cannon. Devastating against flesh, but if that obsidian edge struck a Spanish steel breastplate, it shattered, turned to harmless, glittering dust. A perfect killer in a world without metal armor, and almost useless the moment metal armor arrived. That's evolution, brutal and specific. Then there's my favorite kind of weapon, the problem solvers, the Chinese Zhua. The name literally means claw. Picture a heavy, skeletal iron hand mounted on the end of a 6-foot pole, or dangling off a long chain. You don't slice with it, you don't stab with it. You reach out, hook the rim of an enemy's shield, and rip it away. Suddenly, the soldier who felt safe behind that wood is standing there completely exposed. And it got worse for cavalry. You could hook a horseman's armor or clothing and drag him right out of the saddle, crashing to the ground. It was the ancient equivalent of a tactical can opener, prying enemies out of their protection. And then the strangest one of all, the Italian lantern shield. This sounds like something from a steampunk comic, but it was completely real. Start with a small round shield strapped to your forearm. Fine. Now add a serrated blade sticking out of it to catch enemy swords. Add a spiked gauntlet so you can punch. And then, hidden behind a little leather flap, add a small oil lamp. A lantern. Why? Because the streets of Venice and Florence in the 1500s were pitch black at night and full of muggers. So you'd walk those alleys with your shield glowing faintly behind the flap. When an attacker lunged out of the dark, you'd flick the flap open, blast them with sudden light, blind them for one crucial second, and then drive the spike home. It was a tactical flashlight mounted on a weapon, invented 500 years before we had flashlights. So look at what we've collected. A needle for a robot knight, a crowbar sword, a whip made of blades, a wooden club sharper than a scalpel, an iron claw, a shield with a headlight. They sound absurd, don't they? Like toys some inventor doodled for fun. But here's the truth that ties it all together, and it's the thing I really want you to walk away with. There are no silly weapons in history. None. If a blacksmith spent 3 weeks of his life forging a bizarre, multi-bladed hook and lantern contraption, it wasn't decoration. It wasn't showing off. It was because someone, somewhere, had a very specific, very terrifying problem and needed a very specific solution to survive the night. The dark alley, the wall of pikes, the armored knight, the unarmored horde. Every strange shape is an answer to a question written in fear. So how many cold weapons are there? Tens of thousands, and honestly, we'll never truly count them. But that number was never really the point. The point is what it reveals. We tend to think of the age before gunpowder as primitive, cavemen bashing rocks. It's the exact opposite. It was the golden age of bespoke, custom-made problem solving, the absolute peak of creative, diverse human engineering. Every one of those weird blades is a fingerprint left by a clever, desperate, brilliant mind trying to stay alive one more day. And that is far more impressive than any tidy little list of 18.